Greetings, this is Paul the Poke from PaulthePoke.com. Today's topic, failed coup in Sudan. Scripture references out of Ezekiel 38, verse 5, Persia focus on Cush and put with them all of them with shield and helmet. So a second scripture reference, Genesis 2, verse 13, the name of the second river is Gihon. It is the one that flowed around the whole land of Cush. So this is the first mention in Genesis in the Bible of the land south of Egypt. The Hebrew word is Cush, and in the Bible it's translated as Cush or Ethiopia in the biblical text. And it's a land in the southern Nile River Valley. This is possibly, most likely, modern day Sudan, which brings us to September 2021. Loyalists to the former president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, attempted a coup. They have failed, and over 40 of al-Bashir's supporters have been jailed. So a brief history. We're talking probably the last, roughly 4 years. Oh, and by the way, if you want to take a deep dive into the coup attempt, check out dailymail.co.uk. Sudan foils attempted coup involving loyalists. Former Islamist dictator, 40 officers arrested for the details of the attempted coup. But going back 4 years, Mr. al-Bashir, Russian President Vladimir Putin invited him to Sochi in Russia for a meeting. Sudan was asking for Russian protection against American aggression at the time. And the former Sudanese president, he's not exactly a choir boy in need of protection. He was wanted by the International Criminal Court for genocide and war crimes. Now, al-Bashir, in talking to Russia, was seeking an arms deal, grain imports from Russia, electrical industry assistance, and nuclear power, and, as they all say, for peaceful purposes, of course. Now, 2 years later, in 2019, Democratic forces resulted in al-Bashir being jailed, and a new government formed under the leadership of Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. Take your pick. October 2020, another year later, President Trump announced another historic peace deal. This time, Israel and Sudan were partners. And Sudan had been entered as a member of the expanding Abraham Accords at the time. So, bottom line is, for now, Prime Minister Hamdok remains in power. Elections are not scheduled until 2024. And currently, Sudan is governed by a civilian and military government. Now, I found this. Now, this was very interesting, and I'm going to click on this. Sudan Uprising, covering the story of the uprising in Sudan. History in the making is how this is, posited. I went to look at some other things in and around the Sudan, different press outlets. They've all kind of disappeared. Like one, there was a mysterious fire. They were no longer available to put out anything. Another had some issues with the government and freedom of press. Now, who knows who's being free, who's a mouthpiece, who's accurate, whatever. But at any rate, and I may be all wet, I'm not an expert in what's going on in the context of Sudan, but I did find this, and this is, again, from Sudan Uprising. The failed coup attempt in Sudan is the direct result of the weak stance of the government against the remnants of the Bashir regime within the military. There's no doubt that such attempts will happen again unless there is real change within the military. Now, sounds like to me somebody's asking for a military house cleaning and get rid of all the old al-Bashir regime people. But that's just me reading it. I'm sure that may or may not mean something else to somebody. And this is like a little string of tweets. Burhan, head of the Sovereign Council, is also aiding and abetting such coup because he is unwilling to expose or confront the high-ranking military officers who are still loyal to Bashir and the NCP. The rearranging and reintegration of the armed groups, RSF, and the existing military is a big issue on the table. Despite the huge implication for Sudan's peaceful transition, this issue remains untouched. So whoever Sudan uprising is wanting the military cleaned out, get rid of all the al-Bashir remnants. It's kind of the take I'm getting. And if the civilian component, led by Hamdok, was not so weak, they could have pushed for the full restructuring of the army during this transitional period. However, this day may never come. So there's a lack of transparency in the stories that the government narrates. The previous coup attempts, so this is nothing new as these people see it, and the earlier attempt to assassinate Hamdok, take your pick, I'm unsure. No one was ever put on trial and no evidence was presented to corroborate the government's story. So, Sudan appears to be a mess. I know they've had some potential civil war things taking place in the, I think it's in the north with the Tigrays. And then South Sudan separated from these folks a few years ago. But at any rate, there is a lot of strife and angst within the country of what is current day, modern day Sudan. Now, and I guess my point with all of this is who knows what the twists and turns may be, but what we do know, what is stated in Scripture and how these events will ultimately play out. And that's what the prophet Ezekiel states. Russia, Turkey, Iran, and allies are prophesied to invade Israel in Ezekiel 38 and 39. And arguably, Sudan may join Gog of Magog, that'd be the leader of modern-day Russia, in their invasion of Israel at some point in the future. So, and I think this is a good example of just watching history unfold. We know what Scripture says. We know what the prophets say, where all this is headed. Makes it pretty clear Cush, Sudan, is going to be part of the group that invades Israel. Now, how we get there, I have no idea. There may be many twists and turns. I mean, you could see where the current government gets overthrown and you have somebody who's friendly with Putin takes over, joins Putin, joins in the invasion, or you could see things stay as they are and it would appear to be a betrayal and they join Russia anyway. I don't know how it's going to turn out, and God may have something else in mind. That's just two things that I can think of off the top of my head. So, but nonetheless, this is a country that lines up prophetically with what Ezekiel had to say in chapters 38 and 39. We should probably pay attention to it. It's a piece of the puzzle. How we get there, when we get there, don't know the answer to that, but it is worth watching. So, again, we got some more unrest as it relates to biblical prophecy. Ezekiel 38 and 39 every week is just dominating the headlines over there in the Middle East. Story after story. It comes up on a section I do at valortube.com, This Week in Prophecy. There's something happening every week in regards to Ezekiel 38 and 39. So we'll continue to pay attention to it. And if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share with others at PaulthePoke.com. This is going to be categorized under Ezekiel 38 and 39 right here. Click on the, put your cursor on Ezekiel 38, 39, click on it. Articles going back, going on 11 years now. This really started to take shape in about 2000 is when I first noticed it. It's when Iran and Turkey started making arms deals. You'd hear about once a month or so in the news. And I thought, oh, wow, we're getting close. Well, 21 years later, I mean, this stuff is every single day in the news, some aspect of it. All these countries, all these partners, these ancient names, these ancient brothers and relatives are pulling together. And we are watching history line up as Scripture states it. So we'll keep our eyes on it. At any rate, appreciate you guys following along. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.